it's over. Okay, it's never been more over than it's been now. Okay, done. There's like, I saw the fucking David Weigel post earlier today about like how 7% increase in literally Democrats saying like trans women should not participate in competition with cis girls. Like, okay, it's done. It's Joever. Joe Biden's like feckless ineptitude, his lack of interest in like doing any kind of legislative action, while the right is like looking for new villains because they can't do reactionary politics towards a government that is disinterested in moving the needle in a direction. They put a fucking, they're crying about flags at this point. Fuck, let me just blast off, okay? Do I think Trump will go to prison? No. I mean, maybe. Why? I don't know why I said no. I'm a firm maybe right now. It definitely went from like absolute no to like a definite maybe. I mean, I don't think you'll see the inside of a prison, but like house arrest, possibly. You know what I mean? Some kind of punishment. But I don't think you guys understand. Trump possibly going to prison or being arrested or facing any sort of criminal charges that end up, putting him away does not necessarily change the dynamic in a super positive way for the Republican Party. That would immediately galvanize Rob DeSantis' position. And Rob DeSantis is the biggest of the fucking freaks. The only reason why I've been making fun of him is because, like, I don't think his chances are, I don't think he has a decent enough chance in the fucking primaries. But given how much, like, the anti-trans panic and the anti-gay panic has, like, captivated so many people online, I am changing my position that, like, the overwhelming majority of Americans just don't care about trans people. Because if you recall, in the aftermath of the Republican midterms that was a dud, I told you one of two things. I said, either this narrative that Republicans have held on to about like hyper focusing on trans people and making it their single sole cause is like to eradicate trans people from existence is going to look like it's gross and weird and sweaty to the, suburban conservatives, or the suburban conservatives are going to be captivated by the Fox News narrative and everyone's going to become like one of those, oh, you're a pedophile type freaks. And I told you that, and I didn't think it was likely, and I still don't think it's all that likely that like the average suburban housewife is going to become like a fucking pedo hunter, anti-LGBT freak. But we definitely, I don't think you said the second part. I absolutely said the second part. Just go back and find the footage. Like, my immediate analysis was either this will continuously churn out very negative results for the Republican Party as they keep hammering away at this legislative agenda that we don't really know who it's for, but they'll just keep pushing it, or they will literally make people go absolutely insane, and a larger percentage of the base will turn into fucking freaks. Anyway, I feel like a chunk of suburban white women have a gay friend they see at brunch, so they're probably less galvanized by that. That's what I mean. I said that. Too many people have main character syndrome now that I would not put it past them. Like, Americans didn't have the let's drop the T from the LGB type attitude. That was like very turfy and very British. You know what I mean? That was very turfy and very British. And now I'm seeing like movements like that. that seek to separate trans people from gay people. And the irony, of course, is that those kinds of movements are so fucking stupid because the people that want to eradicate trans people from existence absolutely want to fuck over gay people too. And they're not really hiding it all that well as well. They're just very openly saying, you know, oh, if you're LGBT, like you're a pedophile for the most part. British people have been able to somehow, due to their overarching hatred, like overwhelming hatred for trans people, have been able to make that separation in the UK for some reason. But in America, the leading voices of the anti-trans agenda have not been able to figure that out yet, have not been able to figure out a captivating way to make that message. Most of the time, these people just think drag queens are trans, like it's the same shit. And of course, drag queens can be trans, but in most cases, like the most popular versions of drag queens are usually just like gay men. So it's a sad truth that even liberal mainstream outlets would touch trans people with a 10-foot pole. I watch you for a while now, and I haven't seen a trans person on your stream yet, for example. Yeah, it's because I hate trans people. It's because I'm transphobic. When I worked alongside trans legislators in Juniper and raised money for Lifeline, I was doing that because I wanted to eradicate trans people personally. That's why I did that. Or when I have Chelsea Manning on, whenever she's in Los Angeles, I do that specifically because of my disdain for trans people. That's why I do that. Like, if anything, this is one of the very few places, one of the very few large news outlets, if we are to consider myself that almost exclusively and unequivocally defends trans people. But that still doesn't change the reality that some of you motherfuckers are still going to chirp about it and say, Hasan, you're not doing enough. And it's okay. It's fine. The only argument that you can make towards me being transphobic is that I do not play Hearts of Iron or Fallout New Vegas, which is valid. You can say that, and that's valid, and that's fine. But that's it. Beyond that, it's fucking ridiculous. Okay? Or Celeste. A lot of trans people like it, and the author of the game is trans. Yeah, you a liberal, not having every trans person on your stream. Yeah, that's my liberalism. They're running on ending no-fault divorce. Dude, listen. All I'm going to say is this. Republicans can find a wedge issue, and even if it's not immediately popular, they can keep running it over and over again. And because of how powerful their media is, and because of obviously the issues that they run on are still corresponding to like prior forms of oppressive constructs, because you can't do the counter to this in a socialist sense. But Republicans can run on like more police brutality, please, for example, when police brutality already exists. And if they keep doing it over and over again, and if they keep running on it over and over again, first of all, they can basically get all matter of legislation through the Republican-run state legislatures. Then they can defeat those cases in the courts that they've padded with Republican judges. They can take it all the way up to the Supreme Court and basically solidify that position. They can do all of that without a single genuine referendum on the matter. This does not mean that the Americans are fully and wholeheartedly on board. It just simply means that the Republican Party has the capacity to do these sorts of things, and they will not get punished for it. Okay? That's it. And there's not really much you can do about it. The perfect example about this trans shit is not necessarily the trans stuff or the gay stuff. The perfect parallel is abortion. Nobody wanted it except for a few psychopaths in the Republican base. And they did it. It took 40 years, but they did it. They padded up the decks. They padded the fucking courts with Republican psychopaths. And they got a conservative supermajority in the Supreme Court of the United States. And they did it. And they suffered electoral backlash due to this action because they went too far. Who were they doing this for? We knew that it was only 25% of the country that actually wanted this. 75% of the country has consistently polled against criminalizing abortion. And yet they did it. They lied about it. They said it's well-established precedent. We will not touch it. It's a super precedent. And yet they still did it. Okay? I can't believe I'm going to use a Yakuza reference here. But there is a side mission in Yakuza 0 where there's a guy getting his ass beat because he wants to add new taxes. And I believe Majima, I think it's a Majima side mission, or it might be a Kiryu side mission. But he has a conversation with the guy where he basically says, just raise the taxes 5% first, and then next year you can raise it 8%. And the year after you can raise it by 10%. Because once you raise the taxes by 5%, people get used to it. And then when you raise it again, well, now you're fighting on raising it another additional 3% because they already established that the 5% tax increase happened already. Same goes for this particular instance. Abortion is fought on the grounds of criminalization of abortion. There's already well-established precedent on this. And then all of a sudden, when you unwind that, now the conversation shifts over to, well, you know, maybe we'll allow victims of incestual rape to be able to get an abortion if they see fit. But the conversation was supposed to be about, you know, protecting women's rights to bodily autonomy. That was what the main conversation was. That was a prevailing narrative. That's what we were supposed to be fighting on and maintaining that right and protecting that right. And now it has moved on to maybe we shouldn't arrest doctors. And then one side's like, no, we should arrest doctors. Maybe we should let women with ectopic pregnancies get a specific carve out so they can get an abortion, because the difference between a miscarriage and an abortion miscarriage, like a medically induced miscarriage, is like very little. Okay? They moved on. And the same thing will happen, and the same thing is happening in the absence of any kind of like genuine populist interest in the matter. The same thing is happening to trans people. And once they are well established, and once they've done what they are supposed to, which is eradicate transness from public life and discontinue HRT for consenting adults, okay? Once they are able to successfully stop certain medical procedures from happening because they see fit, they will move back to gay people. And then if they actually succeed with gay people, then they will move back to interracial marriage. This is how fascism works. Obviously, not every, regular old Republican is like a diehard ideological fascist, but it doesn't matter. That's just how it works. You just slowly come for whatever civil liberties you can unroll and unwind and destroy, and then you move on to the next one slowly but surely. That's just how it goes. Okay? That's where we're at. And you can omegalol this all you want, but there is historical precedent for this. If you know anything about World War II and the lead up to World War II and Nazis gaining prominence, it's not like they did this overnight. Okay? That's why everyone always uses the frogs in the boiling water analogy. You do not know that the water is boiling until it's too late. Does no one find it suspicious that the fascist movement in Germany had the exact same enemies that the Republicans have and the conservatives have here in the United States of America? Does that not strike anyone as even remotely odd? Obviously, I'm speaking to an audience of fellow travelers here who are very well aware of this reality, but that's a question that I would like to find out about from those who do not fit this same bill. I want people to openly say that they have certain agreements with Nazis, because that's what you are saying. When you believe that books that pertain information about gay people or trans people should not be in schools, you are agreeing with early era Nazi Germany. They did that. They did that exact same thing. The first book burning, the very famous first book burning that has been heavily documented, was books that exclusively were about medical research into transgender people. That's the first book burning that the Nazis did. This is a very conveniently left out part of this conversation. The Institute of Royal Sexual Research in Berlin would be a century old if it hadn't fallen victim to Nazi ideology. True, but their thought leaders and talking heads have become exponentially more militant and fascistic, basically leading them down the garden path. So what, it should stay banned? Okay. Openly say that you think the Nazis did a good job by banning trans medical research. Say it. Then say it. Yeah. Just say it. You might not agree with everything that the Nazis did, but you certainly agree with this one, right? And you can turn around and be like, well, Nazis drank water. Does that mean I drink water and that's a good thing? Yeah, there you go. You agree. You agree with Nazis. That's it. I'm glad that you at least openly say that. At least you're not cowardly enough to admit it. Have fun with that. Ultimately, we know how that ended. And I wish the same ending for you. Considering it's objectively worse to be trans than cis, not sure why you wouldn't want to keep that information from impressionable children. Because you don't turn trans. You are trans. That's number one. And two, that argument was used towards gay people all the fucking time as well. And it's still a silly one. And now if you were to say that about gay people, most people would probably look at you and go, that's just weird. Why are you saying that? Yes, children are impressionable. When you give them textbooks featuring trans and queer figures, you're not actually saying, oh, you should be trans. You're going to become trans. It just makes it easier for people to accept that reality if they are that. Okay? Being more accepting is not a bad thing. That's it. Also, the overwhelming majority of works of art across every medium is still heteronormative. So don't worry. You'll still be heteronormative. Like, you'll still be het. You know? It's fine. If people could be turned gay, I'd be the gayest motherfucker on the planet. Think about how gay my audience is. I live in West Hollywood. There's just like gay shit year round. It's like Pride year round over here. You know what I mean? It's not how this works at all. Steel Puncher, I was extremely transphobic when I started watching you. It didn't take much time for me to change my mind. I think other people can change too. Yeah. But what if my kid sees trans shit in school and becomes nice and not mean to trans people? What them, bucko? Exactly. Saying you don't want your kid to see any kind of like gay material because you don't want them to turn gay is like saying you don't want your school to allow people to use their left hands if kids are left-handed. Okay? Oh, but life will be much harder for the left-handed. We got to force them to use their right hand. And we got to punish them if they're left-handed. We got to write legislation that makes it illegal to be left-handed. It's that simple. It's that stupid. If my son sees left-handed scissors, he'll want to become left-handed, and that's somehow bad and wrong and immoral. We should really stop teaching children that it's okay to be left-handed. What the fuck are we doing? I used to live in a different America, an America that did not allow such degeneracy, such world-shaking, world-destroying degeneracy. Western civilization has a moral rot at its heart, folks, and that is left-handedness. I guess I don't understand the profit motive. It feels like Republican legislators are choosing ideological fascism over service to capitalist class, which is surprising. No, they're not. They're not. The Republican Party, and here, I'll tie this back. I'll tie back the Republican Party's heinous attacks against the LGBT community somehow back to how the Democratic Party is wrong. That's what you're here for, right? You want me to fucking say, fuck the Democrats. Because fuck the Democrats. Because the Democrats are absolutely responsible for this as well. Why are they responsible for this? Is it because I expect them to launch a fight back and at least like have some sentiment? Like Republican politicians are talking about how fucking trans people are pedophiles pretty much left and right. Okay? Mass shootings are happening. Republicans are not shying away from saying when a trans person does a mass shooting that this is like a trans issue, right? That this is like, we got to stop trans people. They use every opportunity to keep cutting propaganda against corporate pride, against trans people, against gay people in general. Okay? I have seen no such counter propaganda from the Democratic Party. But that's not the real reason why I'm frustrated with the Democratic Party in general. Because Republicans are reactionary. Okay? And in the absence of anything to react to unwind, and that is, of course, progressive legislation that is offering economic restitution or some kind of like progressive legislation that's like protecting trans people or whatever, they are going to react by unwinding pre-existing protections that people had fought for. That's it. So because the Democrats are not trying to move society forward and progress in areas where progress is necessary, Republicans just keep taking wins and keep unwinding it back. They keep rolling it back. So the Democrats are at fault for not giving Republicans a battle. Okay? Move on. Sleeper. Should 4-year-olds decide their gender based? Oh, yeah. I wish for once people like this guy would at least have like a decent conversation. You know what I mean? we get that you're like objectively terrified of seeing rainbows, I guess. But like at least engage with like better bait. You know what I mean? Give me something, give me a talking point that you agree with that I can at least like address. Be a little bit more curious. You know what I mean? Like have the decency to at least just not fucking come in here and chirp and instead learn the talking points so you can like bring it up in the chat so I can address them. Ultimately, if you think that like there's medical transitions happening for like a 4-year-old trans person, you are objectively out of your mind. I mean, you're just incorrect. I don't know how else to address it, but you are quite literally insane. Your brain has melted. I don't know what to tell you. That's not what's going on. Oh, she's pressing buttons. Calm down. No! Anyway, guys, love you all, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.